A very historic day today in the United States as the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, who was a close aide to Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. I've read reports that he might have been the number two to Tulsi Gabbard, has resigned over his feelings about the illegal and unwarranted aggression towards Iran. Those last things are my words, not Joe Kent's words. These are Joe Kent's words. Joe Kent says, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. He wrote later that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and it's a powerful American lobby. This is major news because it represents, one, the first time in not just recent history, but the first time in really, I don't even know the last time something like this happened where a top United States official who was chosen by the president has resigned over issues with that president's foreign policy. Second, it is starting to show a greater split that we are seeing throughout all of the United States, which is not only do they not want to be involved in these conflicts anymore, but also there is less and less sympathy and less support for Israel. Now, whatever those reasons may be, such as you may be arguing like conspiracy theorists like Candace Owens aren't really anti-Israel in good faith and saying certain things that they do say. I think like 2 months ago, Candace Owens went on a really hardcore anti-Semitic rant. And then, of course, there's the leftist side, people like Aaron Mate and Katie Halper, who want to stop supporting Israel because of their ongoing genocide against Palestinians and their acts of aggression in Syria, Lebanon, and now Iran. But Joe Kent's resignation shows us this divide is getting wider and wider and wider and more extreme. I mean, he was a guy who served in the military, lost his wife in Syria, and fully supported Trump in his message. As he said in his letter, he supported Donald Trump in 2016, 2020, and 2024 because he believed Donald Trump would not get them involved in endless wars. Which leads us to why did Joe Kent think that Donald Trump got us in this war? Well, one reason is because he believes that we're doing Israel's bidding. The other reason is that, as Joe Kent said, Donald Trump was surrounded by an echo chamber of people who canceled out all of the pragmatic people, such as General Dan Kane, who were telling him that war with Iran was going to be a prolonged conflict, just like Iraq and Afghanistan, and it would have catastrophic consequences and was a horrible idea. Now, Trump refused to believe those people because he believed people who told him it would just be like Venezuela. You cut the head off the snake and then the snake dies. Well, that's not what has happened. In fact, Iran seems more unified than ever, as they should be, as two countries are attacking them unjustly, unwarrantedly, and after they had been negotiating in good faith. Now, the Joe Kent thing, it really is starting to see a more gradual divide, especially when it comes to the Americans and endless wars and Americans in support for Israel. Americans do not support endless wars anymore. This Iranian conflict is now the most unpopular war there has ever been in the United States, as far as my knowledge. I know that Eisenhower took a lot of flack for how Korea went during the end of his uh, his presidential reign. But now, this is the first time in recent history that from the get-go, Americans did not support this war. And now they are supporting it even less because gas prices are through the roof. There are things here in the United States that are being continued to be ignored. The majority of Americans support healthcare reform that would be something akin to Medicare for all. The majority of Americans support that. And they're routinely told that it would be too expensive or that their tax dollars would have to be raised. Well, we're spending like $2 billion a day to support this conflict in Iran, and yet we can't support healthcare here at home. We have a tremendous homeless population. Food insecurity affects a quarter of Americans, and somehow half of Americans, depending on what region of the United States you're in. There was also recently a poll that showed the majority of Americans believe Trump started this war just to distract from the Epstein files, which would make sense because Donald Trump was getting hammered by the Epstein files for a straight year. They try to deflect from it. They try to do as much as they can to get away from it. They released the files, redacted, and not a lot of the files, as we're learning now, and even censored some of the things that would have incriminated Donald Trump in wrongdoing. and Americans just wouldn't let it go. So now he's attacked Iran, and the majority of Americans believe that he attacked Iran gets to get away from this. And we're seeing that with certain, and we're seeing this divide, whether it's because they believe that the United States is acting on behalf of Israel or acting to get away from the Epstein files or any other reason. We're seeing this divide not only called out by people from the left, like Aaron Mate, Katie Halper, etc., people who are on the far left who align themselves more with what my personal politics are and my personal beliefs are. But we're also seeing this with conservative pundits like known anti-Semite Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, who are conservative pundits who are continually promoting America first and saying that this is not putting America first. And they're right. I disagree with Tucker Carlson probably on 90% of all issues, I would say. But Tucker Carlson is right. This war with Iran, this unwarranted and illegal, unjust act of aggression is not right. And it's not putting American interest first. And now, with barrels of oil, the prices just being chaotic and not knowing what they're going to do from day to day, outside of the fact that they're probably going to continue to rise, one oil company was trading at $111 a barrel. Iran has stated that America is going to feel the pain and they'll feel it when it's at $200 a barrel. And this, of course, has global consequences. Japan is already feeling these consequences. And Americans aren't reaping the benefits. The weapons manufacturers are. They're going to be. The people who own oil in this country are going to be reaping the benefits as they jack up the prices with oil, and just like they did during the Ukrainian conflict after they barred Russia from being able to sell oil to European countries or anywhere else. In case you didn't know, the United States oil industry made over $200 billion during the first years of the Ukrainian conflict. So the question is where do we go here? Well, we have one thing that happens, which is Joe Kent resigns, and he says, I'm resigning because I cannot support this war against Iran. Iran posed no threat to the United States, no imminent threat to the United States. We did this because of Israel, and we're clearly acting on behalf of Israel, and the president is listening to an echo chamber instead of his actual advisors. This is a big deal. Joe Kent may just be another spoke in the wheel, or he may be a snowball that's going to get bigger and bigger. I don't know what's going on with Tulsi Gabbard, but I can tell you that Tulsi Gabbard hasn't been heard from a lot since this war began, and she was a starch opponent of it. Her own intelligence said last year that Iran was not trying to get a nuclear weapon. So the question now comes, where do we go from here? There is a divide between conservatives about these issues. Domestically, they're pretty much on the same page, but when it comes to this foreign stuff, there's a big divide. Where we go from here? Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope maybe you learned something. Continue to donate to help Palestinians and continue to protest against this unwarranted, illegal act of aggression against Iran by Israel and the United States.